Hey Lee, want to shoot around?
Hey Max, of course, let's do it.
Wow, those were amazing shots, Lee.
Oh yeah man, all team wants me. I'm so good, I can transfer whenever I want. And you know what? My news transfer will be all over the media.
I'll stop you right there. An NBA transfer is not good.
What are you talking about? Look at LeBron James' news. Transfer is always good things, that's why media loves it.
My youngling, let me explain it to you.
Alright Lee, my fellow data scientists Haley and Sofia and I performed a groundbreaking study on the network dynamics of players in the NBA as well as the teams themselves. As you know, player transfers are indeed big news in the NBA world. We still remember back when LeBron transferred from Cleveland to Miami. Every news outlet covered his huge transfer. But is this always the case? Do players' transfers indicate how good or desirable a player is? Well, glad that you have me here. I will use network science to explain this matter to you. Let's first start with the player network, and then we'll get into the networks of teams. So we compiled data from 227 players who were active during 5 consecutive seasons, from 2007 to 2011, and we tracked their network connectivity. We defined this network connectivity by connecting a certain player with the number of players he shared a team with. Take LeBron as an example. In 2007, he was playing for Cleveland, so he shared connectivity with the players on that team. In 2008-2009, Cleveland transferred in several players, thus growing LeBron's connectivity with those new players. In 2010 and 2011, LeBron transfers to Miami, so he's now connected with both Cleveland and Miami players, so he grows his network as he transfers. Here we have an overview of every player in the NBA during these 5 years in our analysis. So some overall statistics is that on average 36% of transfers happened every year. Each player had about 28 degrees or connections over these 5 years, and that most players are within 2.5 degrees of separation of each other. We also identified 8 communities, and by communities I mean teams that traded frequently with each other, like Cleveland and Toronto, or Orlando and Phoenix. So here are the 4 personas we identified in our player network, from the superstars, like LeBron James, who gets a lot of media attention, to the specialists like Mike Miller, who has a really desirable skill, who's actually traded pretty frequently, to the isolated players like Udonis Haslem, who stayed on one team during those 5 years. And lastly, we have the highly traded player, or the hubs as we like to call them, who traded frequently, so they have a lot of degrees or a lot of connections with other players. We focused on these hubs, or these highly traded players, for some of our key insights, which I'll get to. So the first thing we looked at, the first big question we wanted to answer, is are traded players typically good or poor performers? So we have 2 charts here that lead us to the same conclusion, that hubs, or the frequently traded players, are typically poor performers. So as they get traded, or as they get more degrees, more connections to other teammates, their points per game go down. The next question we wanted to talk about are traded players typically younger or older? We originally thought that hubs, or the highly traded players, would be more middle-aged, but we actually found out that on average older players are better connected. So you can see that as degrees increase, or as players are traded more frequently, they get older. That a lot of the frequently traded players are actually in their mid to late 30s, which is pretty old for the NBA. The next issue we wanted to tackle was whether or not all-stars lower the performance of the people they play with. Our initial hypothesis was that yes, the league's best players would take away from their teammates as opposed to elevating their play. So we identified the top 7 players during these 5 years based on all-star appearances. These are le creme de la creme, or LeBron de LeBron, if you will. So during this time, their teammates scored 2 points less than the league average, indicating that yes, all-stars diminish the importance of their teammates. If you extrapolate this to the team level, they took away an average of 22 points. However, they contributed about 23.5 points, so their net difference was positive. It should be noted that we use points per game as a proxy for performance, so it does not factor in other contributions like rebounds, assists, etc. Lastly, we found that 5 of these 7 players won a title during this time frame, which is a really impressive statistic. Therefore, if you're a second or third or fourth tier player and an all-star joins your team, you should be worried that he will steal points from you. You should be optimistic that your team will win more games. Let's take a look at the team network now. So we have a better idea of how individual players are connected, but how are teams structure their network? So we took data from the same 5 consecutive seasons from 2007 to 2011. We looked at the 30 different teams. We also aggregated the transfers out, the players they traded, and the transfers in, the players they received during these 5 years. So on the left here, you'll see a network map for the individual teams. In this chart, blue indicates strong performance, while red indicates weak performance based on number of wins. And the size of the dots indicates the number of transfers out, players they transferred during these 5 years. So as we can see from the connectedness chart, most of the hubs are colored red, indicating their weak performance. So on average, hubs won only 28 games per season, which is lower than the NBA overall average. So it is consistent. Being a hub or highly connected is not a good thing in the NBA. One of the reasons for this is because weak teams need to transfer out weak players with the hopes of making their team stronger. The last thing we want to look at is which team is the Kevin Bacon of the NBA. We found that the Chicago Bulls is. They were connected with 26 out of the 30 teams during these 5 years.
So, Lee, do you still want to try out for the NBA?
Nah, I want to be like you, a data scientist.